Shalom everyone, welcome to our program. I would like to welcome today Professor Menachem Lorberbaum. Professor Menachem Lorberbaum is joining us today. He's a founding member of Jerusalem's Shalom Hartman Institute and led his Beit Midrash program. Senior editor to the Jewish political tradition from Yale University Press and author of many books on political, theological science and Jewish thought, including the book in English, Before Hasidism and I Seek Thy Countenance.
Before Hasidism.
Hasidism.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. In any event, please join me today in welcoming Professor Menachem Lorberbaum. It's a big honor to have you. Thank you very much for joining us and giving us your time and lecturing for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I would like to remind the people again. I would like to remind everyone. First of all, I want to say Menachem Lorberbaum to Professor Lorberbaum. It's really an honor that he took our invitation. I would like to remind people who came here that we want to listen to a shir of Professor Lorberbaum and to get a little bit from his knowledge. So I will ask that if anyone has questions, there's papers, the pens. You could take the papers of this, the pens. You could write down your questions, and every few minutes I'm going to open the floor. But please don't interrupt because the time is limited and the knowledge is unlimited. So, okay, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for inviting me. On the way I was thinking to myself what the entry point will be. This is basically, we conceived of the shiurim as being in two steps. First, beginning with the Rambam's conceptualization and systematic presentation of the concept of kavanah, and then look at in the second shir the way the best Talmidim, but especially the Balatoldos, understood and developed the concept of kavanah. So it's kind of a two-step thing. It's really pushing a lot into our discussion, and the reason I brought in the handout mostly Mishnayos is because I want to read one or two halachos in the Rambam. And first of all, I want to share with you that I was just so to do a siyum on the Mishnah Torah, many years of learning. And so this is part of trying to understand the Rambam's understanding of Torah. Thank you. What is the project of Torah? We live a life of halacha that guides our daily lives. And the organizing concept of our normative life is the notion of a mitzvah. But the content of the mitzvot and the manner in which we approach mitzvahs as avoda is founded upon a profound concept of Torah that the Rambam develops. I won't get into it all today, but that's where I'm coming from. Now, where do we hear the Rambam thinking? Where do we hear him at work? Now, first of all, learning along with the Rambam is you don't need me to say it, but the experience of joining him on the way is an experience on the path. In Arabic, the word is tariq, which is the word that's used mostly by Sufis to point to the derech. Where we hear him is in his work as an editor, because what to put where is his decision. If you look at the how many sedarim do we have in the Mishnah? 6. How many books is the Yad HaChazakah? 14. Okay, so you can see already this captures it. We have 1,000 chapters in the Mishnah Torah. And the organization, I'm not talking, let alone new branches of halacha that we won't find, for example, in the Mishnah, right? Like conceptualizing Sefer Hamadah. Think about the fact that the Rambam has a Sefer Kedusha as one of the 40 books which the Mishnah doesn't have. And this tells you a lot about when we start tracking how he, in fact, in the Mishnah Torah, completely took apart in one sense the Shas and brought it together again. So now, looking from the point of view of his project, I can ask the question, okay, so why did he make the choices he made? Well, what do we learn about him? And the way he understands what he's doing, this is where we see it. And I want to talk a little bit about this because I think the Rambam's concept of Torah and the way he, why am I saying what I'm saying about Torah? Because, for example, when we look, and this has to do with an important figure that, if we have time, we'll deal with maybe on Sunday when I'm here, Be'ezrat Hashem, and that is the relation between tefillah as an avoda and korbanos as an avoda. As you know, the Rambam put the whole avodah of the Beis Hamikdash in 2 books in the Mishnah Torah, and Sefer Avodah and Sefer Korbanot, and tefillah is part of Sefer Ahava. What does this tell us? What does this tell us about the way he's thinking? There is no Seder Ahava in the Mishnah. So, where is he going? What is he thinking? These are crucial questions, and I won't get into. I'm trying to begin with an overview because I want to show you that I want to try to share with you the sense that that looking at the Mishnah Torah and the Rambam's work, the Rambam's conception of Torah, of avodah, of theology. Theology is the right term. Theology is Greek. Is a Greek word, but in Arabic the Rishonim use the term ilm lillahi, which means the science of the divine, and this is definitely a major issue for him. Now, I think his most profound Baal Plukta is the Ramban. The Ramban understands perfectly the Rambam's project. There's a profound machloket between them as to perhaps on every important juncture. And I'll throw out another thought, and I think that the Ramban's writing of the Pirush ala Torah is meant to be an alternative to Moreh Nevuchim. And I think we can see that, I think we can show that, and there's a lot to talk about that. Excuse me.
Perish LaTorah is the emphasis of the Moira.
Okay. So this is sort of obvious. I want to say something about Torah. If we look at the 5 Chumashim, the term Torah is used in Vayikra and in Bamidbar to signify particular, to denote particular groups of halachot. Zot Torat HaSham, Zot Torat HaMetzorah Biyom Ta'arato, etc. Using the term Torah for a way to think of the entire project of Torat Moshe is Sefer Dvarim, very clearly so, right? And part of the deep machloket between the Rambam and the Ramban is to understand the significance of this and the relationship between Sefer Dvarim and especially Sefer Vayikra. It's interesting to see that when you have. Why do I say that the Rambam and the Ramban are really ke'achad ha'kadmonim? Is because when you try to understand the project of Avodat Hashem and what does it mean to live a life of Torah, what does it mean to be an Oved Hashem, you need a concept of Torah to guide you. The concept of mitzvah is not enough. And in that way, there are serious problems. We have to remember the limitations of a project like Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, and if I dare say even the Mishnah Berurah, although I think it's clear that the Chafetz Chaim had a concept of Torah. I think that's absolutely clear, and that's part of what gives it its important weight. I think that one of the reasons the great Maggid wanted the Alter Rebbe to write his Shulchan Aruch because he understood that a full project of Torah needs mochin de gadlut. You can't. It needs a certain kind of vantage point, which is very important, and these vantage points have very big prices. In a nutshell, I will say that Nevo is the other side of the mountain of Sinai, and that's a very tricky place to be. And I could say more about that, but it has to do with our finitude. We are people. We're human beings, and we want to convey. Some of us want to be able to convey a way of kedusha, a way of avodah, and it always has prices. So I say that in terms of what I take to be also the kind of a modesty you need when you approach someone like these gedolim. Okay, I've said enough about that. Now I want to say something about which halacha I want to look at, and I want to begin by stating a certain word, which is very interesting. There are certain words in Hebrew, for example, kavanah or shekhinah. These are shmot peula in Hebrew. And the interesting thing is, first of all, you won't find them in the Torah. This is not biblical Hebrew. Even the word kavanah, it's not exactly clear what its shorish is. I think it's true to say kaf vav nun, and we'll soon see one of the interesting positions on this. But first of all, it's the idea. Why is it important? Why is a concept like kavanah important? Why is a concept like shekhinah important? Now, I'll let you know that the Rambam uses the term shekhinah 37 times in the Mishnah Torah, and almost each and every one of them is his own choice to use that word, and it's clear that his understanding of Shekhinah is very different from that of the Ramban, for example, or the Ravid. What does that tell us? What is he after? These are the kind of questions you can start asking when you look at the Mishnah Torah as a work, and normally we don't get to do that. Why? Because we learn the sugya and we look at what the Rambam said, or on a we get to Elul, we learn Ilchot Shuvah, but we don't really follow him in the bigger project. Maybe it's even too scary sometimes. So I want to look not on the concept of Shekhinah, but on the concept of Kavanah. And the Mishnah uses the concept of Kavanah in three different ways, or at least in two different ways, and I think the Rambam is using it in a third way, which will be crucial for the entire. You can't think of Kabbalah without this. And let's one way is to think about kavanah as, okay, let's take the first way.
Honesty, kanot.
Kano?
Kanot. You are aligned with what you're doing. היה קורא בתורה עם כיוון לבוא.
מצוין. חכה רגע. Okay, that's the, I just about to, let's take the Mishnah at the beginning of Brachos. היה קורא בתורה והגיע הזמן המקרא, the beginning of the second chapter, אם כיוון ליבו יצא ואם לאו לא יצא. Right?
He's honest, he's not doing two different things.
No. That's,
Okay.
what is bothering the Mishnah? וכן רואה שהרביץ צונו, וכן רואה שהרביץ צונו אחר בית הכנסת ושמע קול שפר, אם כיוון ליבו יצא ואם לאו לא יצא. What is enigmatic for the Mishnah? Now I think you can take it to where you're saying, and I think there is, we'll soon see who takes it in the world of the Tanaim. But first let's begin with what's enigmatic for the Mishnah. What's the riddle? Why is this a problem for the Mishnah? היה קורא בתורה והגיע הזמן למקרא, אם כיוון ליבו יצא ואם לאו לא יצא. What would be a minimal reading of this Mishnah?
He aimed to have.
He's not.
No, what's the question? What's bothering
Not
the
what the
Mishnah?
perish from Kivun.
If it's Torah or Krishna.
What?
If it's Torah or Krishna.
Oh, yafeh. What do we have? This is an interesting mitzvah, because you can't differentiate between reading the pasuk in Dvarim and Kabbalat Malchut Shamayim.
Only with Kavanah you differentiate it.
Pardon me?
Only with Kavanah you differentiate it.
No. So what? Now, when you understand what the question is what is kavanah? What is it about? The minimal reading would be
Intention.
that in such a case, not intention, what he has in mind that he's doing. What, if you
קיים את מצוות קרישמה.
זה מה שאומר רש"י, נכון? רש"י אומר, כי הוא מקשר בין כוונה לבין לשם, מה שהרמב"ם חולק עליו לגמרי, אבל נגיד דבר אחר, let's say something else. A minimal one would be, if you ask this person afterwards, what did you do? He said, of course I read Krishma, what do you think I did? Now, why is that important? Because the minimal reading of what kavanah does is that it is a condition of identity, and it's not even a mental event. It's the story you know how to tell. If someone asks you, you said, this is what I did, of course. Now, this is important because many of us, I don't know how many of you had the chance on Rosh Hashanah that you're running somewhere. For example, I have to take care, second day of Rosh Hashanah, I have to take care of my ima. And I'm late, and I want to know whether my ima heard the shofar or didn't. And there are many occasions like that. Or if you are a medic or a doctor or a soldier or whatever, and you're on duty. But if you heard the shofar, you can say, tokim b'shofar. That's it. That's the minimal condition of the mitzvah. Now, why does the Mishnah give us the example of the ro'eh who's standing outside of shul?
Because that's
Two ways.
Because if you're in shul,
You definitely know.
the presumption is that you are already participating in the ritual of Rosh Hashanah. So you don't even. So that is it. You're there. You're living the mitzvah.
That's why you're there.
Okay. So this is a minimal notion of kavanah, and I think that's what Chazal are after, because they want to be inclusive. They want everybody to be able to be aware of it.
There's the shita from the Chayot. It says that when in your shul, it's the same thing. If someone puts tefillin, then he has kavanah, because no one puts tefillin just the same thing. If you're in shul, you're here for the tkiyas. If not,
Exactly. This is what you're doing. This is what you're doing. You can't even individuate the shofar, the tefillin is independent of what's going on. So that's very interesting. That's why there's an interesting tshuva of the Rashba. What if somebody has a negative kavana? And that's an interesting tshuva of the Rashba. I think, if I remember correctly, the Beit Yosef brings it on the tool, if I remember it correctly.
The kavuna that you shouldn't be mekayim the mitzvah.
Yes.
Kavuna shloilut.
That's big mamish.
So that's an interesting case. I won't go into. So this is first of all a minimal thing. But then you have a completely different use. אין עומדים להתפלל אלא מתוך כובד ראש. חסידים הראשונים היו שוהים שעה אחת ומתפללים כדי שיכוונו את ליבם למקום. אפילו המלך שואל בשלמו לא ישיבנו, ואפילו נחש כרוך על עקבו לא יפסיק. This is an interesting question. Is this a halacha of the Hasidim, or is this meant for everyone? This is a crucial question because the fifth perek of Brochus begins with the Hasidim and ends with the Hasidim, right? Because it goes to Chanina ben Dosa, and then and you have a similar case in Ta'anit, right? There Yechidim matchilim, but it's Choni that actually gets the rain. So that moment is a very interesting one, and you see that it's also understood by the Mishnah as being a very borderline case. They're not completely happy with it, but as we all know, the Gemara at least brings the case of what is it, Yochanan ben Zakkai, do I remember correctly, that asks Chanina ben Dosa to daven for his son. Yeah, the people who know. There are two different things. One thing is the obligation to daven. Another thing is what is a successful appeal to the Kodesh Baruch Hu. And this is a question that's bothering the Mishnah. It bothers it. For example, look at the Mishnah. B'chol yom koreh adam מתפלל אדם 18, right? And Rabbi Akiva says, אם שגרה תפילתו בפיו, מתפלל 18, ואם לאו, etc. Now, shagra is the nusach in Ktav Yad Koshman, and that's and Shlomo Ne'eh has a wonderful article on shagrat tfilato b'fiv. And that means that he understands that shagra means that you sense that the tefillah is flowing through you. And this is interesting because through the person who's davening. Shagra is sent. Shager is to send, like to send a message, to send.
This goes automatically.
Shagir bepiv means it comes out easily, no?
The Mishnah doesn't say enough.
He's using it. Yeah, he's using it deeper.
And the same thing.
Different ideas.
Chanina ben Dosa says, שגרה תפילתי לפי יודע, המתפלל וטעה סימן רע לו. ואם שליח ציבור הוא סימן רע לשולחיו.
But that doesn't mean like
ואם שגרה תפילתו בפי, יודע שהוא חי, ואם לאו יודע שהוא מת, that's שהוא מטורף.
So he says it feels, if you feel connected to it.
It's hard to know. It's hard to know. But he clearly sends it to the event, rather to his sense of what the tefillah is. And again, I mentioned the Maggid before. The Maggid used to say that you have to daven like a ganev. And it's interesting. It's an interesting saying, and I think that anybody's.
When
you're a shliach tzibur, and sometimes you have to know just how to grab and move on.
Grab and run.
Because you're representing an entire tzibur. That's not an easy matter. Okay. So a second.
Could you explain more? I don't understand what you meant. Adam like a gun. What does it mean?
You have to ask the Maggid.
No, but what you said some explanation.
I'll get around that. Maybe I'll get to it also because there's one thing I really want to get to, and that's it.
Okay.
Okay. Now, but remind me. Now, okay. So So the second thing is it's clear that the Mishnah understood that kavanah in tefillah is something else, and we all know the classic Reb Chaim on kavanah, following the Rambam, and actually it's the Rashba also that says the same thing, the same nusach, and that is kol tefillah she'eina b'chavanah eina tefillah. Here, kavanah is not a condition. It's not a condition for a mitzvah. Like it's not the issue of l'shem mitzvah. It's not also a condition of identifying the action. This is what it's about. This is what it's about. And you see this also from the structure of Masachet Brachot on the level of the Mishnah, right? You have text, you have time, text, kavanah. They all follow each other, and then also with regard to Tfilat HaShachar and Ein Omdim. Now, there is though another interesting thing, and that is, I think there's another position among the Tanaim, and that's the position of Rabbi Eliezer ben Hokenos. Now, if you look at all the editions of the Mishnah, Rabbi Eliezer's statement is put as a separate Mishnah, right? Rabban Gamliel b'chol yom mitpalel adam 18, Rabbi Akiva Omer, and then Rabbi Eliezer is a new Mishnah. I think it's part of I want to suggest to you that it's part of the previous Mishnah. And Rabbi Eliezer was against the project of Shmona. He thought that putting the tefillah into a structure will destroy the tefillah. And we all know that this is a big challenge in any case. So it's interesting. It needs a lot of thought, and
Do you want to elaborate a little why putting it in a structure could make a problem? Could you?
Well, we all know that. We know that. We chapa mincha, we chapa ma'ariv. We have to daven quickly.
No experience.
And we don't know. We just don't have time.
Saying that the religious experience gets done. The same.
Mitzvah
Mitzvah Lemuda.
We don't mean if you don't prepare yourself adequately for davening, then the event of saying the brachas will not be a supplication.
So why with keva you don't prepare? No, it's keva. You have to prepare every day. That's what I'm asking. Why do you think with keva, when it's spontaneous, then it's more preparation?
I didn't say that it was spontaneous. It was more preparation. It's about words. It's about the keva. It's about the keva. It's about.
Can be spontaneous, keva.
Okay.
What does keva do to take away the kavanah?
Same words.
First of all, he didn't use the word. He didn't use the word kavanah. He used the word
Make it not
tachanunim.
tachanunim.
Because if you have to daven 3 times a day Shmoneh Esrei, and you do beforehand, you did the brachas of Krishma, you have, and you did a Birkot HaShachar and Sukkei Zibah and Korbanos and whatever, and who has any koyach even to do it?
What do you mean? It's only Shalom and Esrei. Yeah? We're talking 3 times a day, and I could speak to God 3 times a day, and I have a relationship with God. I'll speak. Why do you think it's so? I want you to a little bit more elaborate. Why do you think it's not tachlinim if you give it every day?
Can I say?
No.
The keva isn't every day. It's a question of whether Avodat Hashem. What is the structure of Avodat Hashem?
No.
I think this is what the issue at hand is, and you see even beforehand. Rabbi Akiva, if Rabbi Akiva is talking about an ecstatic tefillah, im shagrat tfilato b'fiv yitpalel 18 v'im lav me'en 18, it could be that Rabbi Akiva is a middle position between the stam of the Mishnah beforehand, Rabban Gamliel and Rabbi Eliezer. But we also have to ask ourselves what's Rabbi Yeshua's position afterwards. Be'et Sakana. I don't have strong positions. I think that our conversation with the with the Mishnah begins when we can start thinking out loud. And what do we position with everything? But the questions are good. I don't want to. I'm not denying them. I just want us to think about it, because definitely, if you have a notion of inwardness, these discussions are crucial.
The Rambam says that the Isara then Tefillah is a deraisa, because then it's a technique, isn't it? If the person feels.
Well, first of all, you know that there's a big machlok rishonim about this between the Rambam and the Ramban. Why are we even davening? Why are we davening Shmona Esrei? Why is Shmona Esrei an expression of that? And there are many positions upon it. I think, from my point of view, the best work that was written in Mechkar on this is Ehud Ben Or's book, Worship of the Heart. Ehud Ben Or, Worship of the Heart. It's in English. It was published by SUNY, if I remember correctly. He was my older chavrusa of my first year in Hartman's. When we formed the Beit Midrash, he's 7 years older than me, and I learned with him brachas, and we spoke a lot about these issues. It's a wonderful book. It's a wonderful book. Okay. He also has another good book called Ethical Monotheism. That was his second book. Okay. Now, why am I saying all this? So now we have already a few things. We have the possibility of a minimal notion of kavana. We have kavana as constitutive of certain mitzvahs. And we have a third possibility also that's looming here, and that is that a mitzvah can be an occasion for kavana. And I think that this is what was troubling us with Rabbi Eliezer. I think Rabbi Eliezer is feeling very uncomfortable with Shmona Esrei. You may think this is much too much. See, I can tell you that just personally, what I did is already from when I was a child, that I learned all the tefillah by heart and all the tilim, so it would come to me naturally with davening. This is I like to speak through these psukim, and this is a big difference between Hebrew speakers, native Hebrew speakers, and not. My daughter lives in London. She says, I come to shul, I listen to people davening, they have no idea what they're saying because they don't understand Hebrew. But I see this as a big zchut of growing up in Eretz Yisrael, even though native Israeli Hebrew is very different from classic Hebrew, but it's still within you. And I'll tell you, I was now in Rome there was an event of 60th anniversary of the Nostra Aetate, the Vatican II, and on the first day, I was there for 3 days, and I was walking, and a Dominican brother passed me, and I could see he was singing to himself. I was walking one direction, he passed me, and then at the Pope's audience, I saw him coming and sitting among the different Yidden, and I said to him, I saw you yesterday, and I told him that, and he says to me, I'll give you a story in exchange. He said, I was walking in Eretz Yisrael, and he was in his white habit, and a Haredi father passed with his little son, and passed, and he said to his Papa, why is he dressed this way? And he said to him, he's a rabbi of Christians. and he said to me, ever since then, I come and sit with the Yidden. So that was quite moving. Anyway, okay. So we have three different notions of kavana, and the interesting thing is, are they on a continuum or not? What enables us to develop different notions of kavana? After the Mishnah put this all here, what do we where are we? What's the avoda that we're doing? Now, okay. Let's look for a second at an interesting Rambam now, and let's see where the Rambam took this for. There's so much to talk about in the Rambam about Kavana, but I want to focus on one thing, and this is a famous Rambam at the end of Bilchot Mikvot.
Isn't one thing, I want to open up the floor for questions for 2 minutes, okay? I want to open the floor before we go to the Rambam. Just want to ask you, isn't the common denominator for all this type of kavanos the three types of kavanos, the common denominator, עליית החשיבות של המיינד, של המחשבה, של הבן אדם, שלא מופיע כל כך בתורה, isn't this, let's say, if you want to find the common denominator, is the importance of the mind of the person, that we don't see any emphasis in the Torah.
I think you're right in a certain way. That's Yishai Rosenzweig's way of putting it. Yishai teaches in my department. We're old friends. He's a great Talmid Chacham, and why don't I go exactly there? I think that's possible. There's a problem sometimes when you're trained in philosophy, and I'm trained in philosophy. I learned Gemara and I learned philosophy. These are two things. I'm very okay. Now I'm going to give you completely completely professional answer on this. I think that Wittgenstein is right that words like kavana are a trap. They create a notion of inwardness that we don't always have, that we don't always need.
Need?
We have to ask ourselves, what is inwardness and what is presence? They're not the same thing.
Too much kavana takes away kavana.
There's something about that. So I think that we hardly understand how our nefesh is structured. Kal vachomer al neshama. So I try to learn how the Mishnah understands and how Chachamim understood what Kavanah does. What's the nafkamina of here? Look at what they're doing. They're not saying that you fulfilled your the issue isn't haim yatzata yedei chova. The issue is what happened. What is the action that happened in the world? I find the Mishnah much more action oriented,
not so personal,
than psychologically. The Mishnah never uses the word pnimiyut. Actually, the whole thinking of pnimiyut, first times we find it in Hebrew, the word is, first of all, it's a translation of a distinction that's very fundamental to Arab culture for thousands of years. And that is between Zahir, which is the outside, like Tahara Yom, it's the same word. The outside, the outer, the Shitchi, Arishoni, and Batin. Batin, like the Hebrew word beten, Batin is inwardness. Batin is sod. Batin is pnimiyut. And you might say that one of the great things that Chovot HaLevavot did was to help Ovdei Hashem think through this distinction, to develop their personality, their religious personality through this distinction. Where do you see it very powerfully? See it very powerfully in the fact that Chovot HaLevavot has been translated into languages that Jews speak more than any other book that was written in another language. Sometimes as shortened versions, sometimes longer versions, and this translation created a whole religious life for us. Matzpun. The matzpun means in Chovot HaLevavot when Yehuda Ibn Tibon translates it, he means tzafun, he means the hidden. And that gives us a word in modernity for conscience, which is not the same thing. I'm also I'm also cautious of romantic understandings of inwardness. What do I mean by romantic? Romanticism is a movement in the West that distinguishes very strongly between rationalism and feeling, between spontaneity and between structure. And I think it doesn't work. So I steer away from it. And I think, not because I don't think, if you grew up in a romantic culture, this is who you are. You can't transcend the psychology that you've learned. But
What about Kuzari?
the Kuzari, the Kuzari has a whole attack on Sufism in Rabbeinu Bachya is the first important Jewish Sufi, and Mamar Shlishi of the Kuzari is a frontal attack against all that. He attacks the notion. The translation translates the word as ishtadlut. Ishtadlut is a translation of the Arabic ijtihad, which is the great effort we do to change ourselves. So I think I think the most important ones that players are the Rambam on the one hand, and I hope that in the next shiur we'll take a look at the Rambam's additional notion, and that is kavanah is a way of life.
Chazal didn't have any of these feelings or any of these experiences.
I didn't know. They didn't have this psychology.
Right, so they didn't have it.
They don't talk this way. So I don't know.
What do you mean? I mean,
But they give us an apparatus.
Minimal, very minimal.
I'm not sure. When Chanina ben Dosa says in Shagrat Tefilati, when the Mishnah says הטועה המתפלל ותעש סימן רע לו, ואם שליח ציבור סימן רע לשולחיו, you see, the way I would interpret it is to understand that the person who's davening, and this is the avodah of the Chassid, is that he's at one
Connected.
with his tefillah. Now, what that means, I'm not sure. But what we know is what happens if it doesn't work. If it doesn't work, he says what? I couldn't find my words. I wasn't there. Now the others don't even have that. Don't even have that yumra. They don't think. So it's hard to know. We're trying to figure out something here that's very delicate, and we don't necessarily share. They gave us a map, and what I think what an important map does is that it helps us find ourselves, because that enables us to enter. And I think one of the most dramatic Mishnayot is the Mishnah of אין לומדים להתפלל. אין לומדים להתפלל אלא מתוך כובד ראש. כובד ראש is gravitas, the opposite of kalut hadat. You know, this is momentous. But you know what? Think about Yaakov Avinu. Right? He falls asleep. ויצא יעקב מבאר שבע באלי חרנה. Right? ואין שם קיבה השמש ויקח מאבני המקום ויעשה מרעיו שוטיו. Then he has a vision. And what does he say afterwards? מה נורא המקום הזה? ואנוכי לא ידעתי. You can stumble upon the makom and not know that you've stumbled upon it. And there are many different paths
He
for doing
realized it
this.
after the experience. As it happened, he didn't get it. Only afterwards, he looked back.
Oh yes, and he knows, and he understands where I was. No, even I think. Yes, I'm going to put it aside. Let's go to the Rambam now, because I really want to. Going to see. And this is not to say that our chavayot are not authentic. To be authentic means to be at one with yourself, and that depends on your psyche, on your body, on how you grew up. All these factors are crucial, and each one of us is in a different place. But I think the power of Chazal is that they give us a structure that lasts through so many different combinations and thinking. Okay, now the end of Ilchot Mikvaot, which is really a fascinating halakha that we all know. So what is and I'll remind you that the Rambam also took all the halachot of kavanah and put them together in Ilchot Tefillah. And you know, Chamisha Dvarim me'akvim et HaTefillah, and I just can't go into it all. But I do want to look at Ilchot Mikvot. Okay, here we are. Okay, all the way at the end. So in Po Ma'amatz Gadol. This is a wonderful Rambam. Here you see the Rambam in action. This is all him, but this is all him weaving together Chazal, which is incredible. Okay, so this is in Perek Yud Aleph, Halacha Yud Bet. דבר ברור וגלוי שהטומאות והטהרות גזירת הכתוב הם. Okay, this my cousin Yair has done a lot of work on the Rambam's use of גזירת הכתוב, and I won't go into it, but דבר ברור וגלוי is exactly like, for example, Descartes will use a few hundred years later, clara et distincta. This is self-evident. It's exactly the same words. דבר ברור וגלוי שהטומאות והטהרות גזירות הכתוב הן ואינן מדברים שדעתו של האדם הכרעתו והרי הן מכלל החוקים. What is da'at for the Rambam is a fascinating question because it has many different meanings for him. I'll just point out that, for example, the definition, look at the problems even of having a language for psychology and for our mind. Why? Because in Arabic the word for mind, not for mind, for what we would say sechel, intellect, is akil. Shmuel ibn Tibon, when he translates Moreh HaNevuchim, translates it as sechel. The Rambam never uses the word sechel. And this is an interesting question, because why did Shmuel ibn Tibon decide on translations of technical terms that he knew the Rambam worked with differently and suggested other Hebrew words, but he goes in his direction. And the important clue for this is that he has, Shmuel ibn Tibon has a glossary that he put at the end of Moreh HaNevuchim after he finished the translation, in which he tries to explain his neologisms in Hebrew. Why he chose these words and not those words? How is it? And this is a great idea. What is da'ato? Not exactly clear what the Rambam has in mind. I think that da'at is very close to mind, that he's using da'at because da'at is very close to mind, the way we use it today in English, which has a very strong cognitive element in it. But mind, it comes from the word mente in Latin, and mente is exactly nefesh. And if you're an Arabic speaker, the word nafs is a very broad word. The word nefesh in Hebrew is a very narrow word in not in the Torah, but in medieval Hebrew. So many times, we think that our mind is clear to us, but when you look at the history of a word, suddenly you see that we don't even know. It's not always clear that we know what we're talking about.
Doesn't it mean understanding?
What?
Shedat v'shalom is understanding.
I'll put it on the side now, because the question is maze le'avin, and but I don't want to go into that. The Rambam would use a different word for understanding. He would use faham in Arabic, fuhama, and that's very different. That's comprehension, but. There's a lot to discuss here. The epistemology is fascinating. וכך הטבילה מן הטומאות מכלל החוקים היא. Now he explains why it's a chok. Why? שאין הטומאה היא תוצאה שתעבור במים. I mean, we're not cleaning ourselves, we're doing something else. We're not cleaning our body from dirt, we're doing something else. And this is interesting because nikayon in Hebrew, להיות naki, is something that certainly the Rambam sees as a crucial element, and he joins the Braita of Rabbi Pinchas ben Yair, which, by the way, he doesn't bring at the end of Sota, if I remember correctly, is the Braita ben Yair. He doesn't. He thinks that's a Braita. It's a Tosefta. It's not part of the thing, but he uses it many times in his halachic work. For example, in the introduction to Avot, to Shmona Prakim, in the introduction to Seder Taharot in the Mishnah, he's very much aware of this. He thinks a lot about Nikayon and Da'at, Nikayon and Tahara. יש מה להגיד כאן. אוקיי, אז אין הטומאה תוצאה שתעבור במים, אלא גזירת הכתוב היא, והדבר תלוי בכוונת הלב. We'll soon get, I want to read it to the end, and then let's see what he wove together here. ולפיכך אמרו חכמים, טבל ולא הוחזק כאילו לא טבל. Now this is pure halacha, right? טבל ולא הוחזק כאילו לא טבל. That's in Mishnah Chagiga and in Taharot, in a number of places. If I remember correctly, in Mishnah, איפה זה טבל ולא הוחזק כאילו לא טבל.
מה זה החזק?
What?
מה זה החזק? לכוון? מה זה החזק?
It's like this. First of all, it's in Chagiga, but it's also in Seder Taharot. The reason it's in Chagiga is because people come to the Mikdash, and Chagiga is structured as preparing everyone for Simchat HaChag. Now, if you're Tovel, but for example, you're Tovel for Tumat Keri, זאת טומאה נמוכה. אז אתה לא יכול להיכנס, אתה לא יכול לאכול קורבן עם זה. Interesting question where exactly the Kohanim are. Remember the first Mishnah again in Brachos. So a crucial question is, how do you know that you're a part of being Tovel for performing any kind of act of Kedusha that needs a Tvila? You have to also know what it is that you're doing, right? If you're going for a higher form, then we know that you can also do lower forms of things. And that's the way that Kaval v'lo chzak, ki lo taval lo chzak, זאת אומרת, he doesn't have a chazaka of Torah for this specific thing. Okay, now here the Rambam, this is wonderful. You know, these are the kind of halachot that then you can see, for example, Rabbi Yoshe Ber alav Shalom reading in his different things, how he would read when he wanted to make the maximum of the notion in a particular halacha. So this is halacha, okay? Now, לפיכך אמרו חכמים, טבל ולא הוחזק כאילו לא טבל. ואף על פי כן, רמז יש בדבר. What is remez? Interesting also. I'm not quite sure. This is an interesting word. יש בדבר. כשם שהמכוון ליבו לטהר, כיוון שטבל טהור, ואף על פי שלא נתחדש בגופו דבר, right? This is not cleaning. This is a symbolic action. כך המכוון ליבו לטהר נפשו מטומאות הנפשות שהן מחשבות האוון ודעות הרעות, כיוון שהסכים בליבו לפרוש מאותם העצות. This sends us back to הלכות תשובה, והביא נפשו במי הדעת. This is why he used that beforehand, right? Tahal.
Where's that term mehadat from?
במי הדעת.
Where did he get this?
עכשיו עוד רגע אנחנו הולך אחד אחד, תראה מה הוא עשה.
אני מבין.
הוא באמת ענק. You'll see what he weaved together. הרי הוא אומר, וזרקתי עליכם מים טהורים וטהרתם, מכל תומותיכם ומכל גילוליכם אטהר אתכם. השם ברחמיו הרבים יטהרנו מכל חטא ועוון ואשמה, אמן. What did he do here? Where did he, okay.
Where did he begin? What's his starting point?
What's his starting point? His starting point is, first of all, he takes the halacha. טבל ולא הוחזק כאילו לא טבל. אחר כך הוא לוקח עוד דבר. Look at the Tosefta I brought to you from Rosh Hashanah. This is a fascinating Tosefta, and here you see that Tosefta is working with the concept of kavanah that the Mishnah usually doesn't want to amplify. What the relation between the Mishnah and the Tosefta as works are is a crucial question. There are many deep differences between them, but from the Rambam's point of view, this doesn't matter. This is all part of his canonical, treasury, and he uses it all. Okay, so let's see, go ahead. Read the Tosefta in Rosh Hashanah. What is it, Tosefta Rosh Hashanah? What's your name? Excuse me?
Moti.
What's the Tosefta in Rosh Hashanah? I think I brought it.
Yeah, Roy Shehirbitz.
It begins with תוקע לתוך הבור ולתוך הדוד,
Got it, yes.
right? I think that's already the Mishnah, right? The Mishnah says that. כן, התוקע לתוך הבור הוא הדוד, this is the Tosefta, right? או לתוך הדוד או לתוך הפיתס, אם כל שופר שמע יצא ואם כל עברה שמע לא יצא, right? Now, continue. וכן מי שהיה
Oy ve achayre beis ha-knesses. Oy shehu yebaisei sumich lebeis ha-knesses. V'shuma koil shoifa koil megillah, im kivin libo yutzu, v'im lav lo yutzu. Af al pi shezeh shuma v'zeh shuma, zeh kivin libo v'zeh lo kivin libo.
Oh,
That's
here
a
the Mishnah
Hadush.
the Tosefta is taking us another step.
He's opening it up.
Now what else does he say, the Tosefta?
Continue.
שאין הכל הולך, right, אלא אחר כוונת הלבוב. I didn't bring that, סליחה, טעות שלי. Then the Tosefta,
You have it on the other side. The
Ma?
other side. The other side.
okay, on the other page.
Roy Shehirbitz, that's what he
הנה
said before.
התוספתא, כן,
הנה
סליחה.
התוספתא, כן.
כן, כן, כן. התוספתא היא בעמוד הבא, כן.
That's the
כן,
Mishnah.
כן, כן. כי already, my mistake. Let me, סליחה, טעיתי, אני ארגן את עצמי עוד פעם. It goes like this. The Mishnah, which you just read, leads us on to what? leads us on to והיה כאשר ירים משה ידו וגבר ישראל, right? And now this is wonderful. because אלא בזמן שישראל מסתכלים כלפי מעלה ומשעבדים את ליבם לאביהם שבשמיים, היו מתגברים ואם לאו היו נופלים. So here you see the Mishnah is already taking us a step forward and saying tefillah is not magic. You know what? Even Moshe's hands were not magic. It's not about magic. And the Saraf בוודאי, וכי נחש ממית וכי נחש מחיה. You know, I grew up in a very Litvish yeshiva, and this is what we used to sing before the Bar Yabina's Alav Shalom Rosh Yeshiva's Sicha. You sit in Anyway, now look what the Tosefta does. Tosefta takes us a step forward. שאין הכל הולך אל אחר כוונת הלב, שנאמר, תכין ליבם, תקשיב אוזניך. Here you see how the Tosefta understood the shorish of kavanah.
Is it later? Is this Tosefta later than?
This is who knows? Who
It
knows?
seems
It
seems like a development.
I think that
As society developed, and
the Tosefta is a development of the Mishnah, but there are many. Look. Okay, let's finish the Meilich and then I'll say a bit more to you about that because it's an important issue. שאין הכל הולך אלא אחר כוונת הלב שנאמר תכין ליבם תקשיב אוזניך ואומר תנבני לבך לי Now, a crucial question is, what is a live? I'm not going to get into that right now. Yeah, this is an interesting question, but first of all, you can see that the Rambam already says, Gamken brought you the same structure. He's saying she'ein hakol talui ela bechavanat halev. That's what it. But he connects it with another important Mishnah. That's the Mishnah at the end of Yoma. Right? It's an interesting machloket. Right after the Tosefta I brought here, right? The Mishnah, Yoma Chet, תקרא את זו דרש רבי אלעזר בן עזריה.
כל חטאצייך לפני השם תטורי, הוויה שמונה למוקם יום הכיפר מכפר, הוויה שמונה למוקם כיפר.
So how did Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah read? עד שירצה את חברו, נכון?
כן, עד שירצה את חברו.
איך קרא רבי אלעזר בן עזריה את הפסוק?
עבירות שמונה למוקם. לפני השם, רק לפני השם, רק לפני השם.
נכון, רק חטאותיכם שהם לפני השם,
כן.
אנחנו נתנאים מתי ביום הזה?
כן.
All the rest is that your חשבון with your friend, זה לא מפותח. Now, רבי עקיבא,
אין פה
Rabbi Akiva's drasha will become soon. We'll soon see. זו דרש, סליחה. Next page.
עבירות שבלונדון לחברו, אין יקביר מכפר, עד שירץ את חברו.
אומר רבי עקיבא זכוילק.
אומר רבי עקיבא, אשריכם ישראל לפני מי אתם מטהרתם, אבינו שבשמיים, שנם זרקת עליכם מים טהורים וטהרתם, אוי ומה המקוותת, אז מה הקדוש ברוך הוא טהר אצלו? אומר רבי עקיבא, אשריכם ישראל לפני מי אתם מטהרתם, מי מטהר אתכם? אביכם שבשמיים, שנם זרקת עליכם מים טהורים וטהרתם, ואוי מיקי ישראל השם, מה המקוותת, אז מה אף הקדוש ברוך הוא מטהר אצלו?
Almighty God absolves you.
How did Rabbi Akiva read the pasuk? He said, קודם כל הוא חולק על רבי אלעזר בן עזריה because he thinks, I'm not sure that he would say that you don't have to ask me to up your friends, but there are two aspects to an avera. But he read the pasuk differently. He read, כי ביום הזה יכפר עליכם לתאר אתכם, right?
כן.
מכל חטאותיכם לפני השם תטהרו. Now he's doing two things. First of all, he's taking the beginning, the understanding of how Chachamim read Ki Vayom Hazeh. One way is to read Ki Vayom Hazeh on this day. The other is to understand that the bet here is Be'emtza'ut HaYom Hazeh.
Through it.
Right? Now, what is Lifnei Hashem Titaru?
You're standing in His presence. And he has the power.
Mikveh Yisrael Hashem. Now, what is the pasuk saying? What is Mikveh Yisrael Hashem? In the Hebrew, Mikveh Yisrael Hashem says Hashem hu hatikva shel Yisrael. Comes Rabbi Akiva and does a classic drasha, right? This is a drasha of Rabbi Akiva where he takes the words to the same word has two meanings. Like we saw at the beginning about Kriyat Shema, right? If you understand that the Kodesh Baruch Hu is your mikveh, you're somewhere else. That's what the Rambam is doing. That's why he's bringing the pasuk. He understood it perfectly. What we do on Yom Kippur is we are invited to be toivel, mamash b'fnei Hashem. Lifnei Hashem titaru. This is the day. The day is a day of presence. It's a day of presence. And we have to be in Hashem in a very important way. I would deign to say that the entire structure of the avoda in the Mishnah, the Mishnah's rendering of Yom Kippur, והכהנים והעם כשהיו שומעים את השם הגדול יוצא היו נופלים. This is Rabbi Akiva. This is Rabbi Akiva's rendering because in the Torah it doesn't say. But it becomes a crucial element in the scene, and look how important it is for us. This is the only time in the year that we fall on our faces. We hear, we reenact this moment. This is crucial.
And we come out renewed.
And we come out renewed. And מה מקווה מטהר את הטמאים? אף הקדוש ברוך הוא מטהר את ישראל, and the Rambam turns it over. בגלל שהקדוש ברוך הוא מטהר את ישראל, we can learn a lot about what the mikveh is. And it depends where we are. It depends what we're doing, what we have in mind. And this is a wonderful Rambam. And now you see how he takes the whole thing together, and he puts it together, and he focuses us on the notion of the Lev and the notion of the Shem. These are two very important things. For the Rambam, it's your state of mind at the minimum, and it has to do with how we stand in the presence of Hashem. And this is, I think, probably one of the Rambam's most important contributions to Jewish religiosity that I know. Because this structure, everybody uses afterwards. And look how he did it. He understood what the Tosefta is doing. He understood what the Mishnah is doing. And he takes it and he hangs it on the halacha. And he tells you, this is what Kiyum Mitzvot is about this kind of consciousness. It's about
standing in the presence.
Yeah. It's first of all being present in what you're doing, but being present in what you're doing as someone who's standing in Hashem's presence. And for the Rambam, the two are the same in many ways. Why? Because to the degree that we are conscious of the Kodesh Baruch Hu, then the Kodesh Baruch Hu is in the world.
Faith. The source of faith is faith itself.
And yes, and this is why the Rambam understood it was so important to define Kiddush Hashem at the end of the Bavli and Brachot. Of Yoma. Yeah. Heichidami. To the degree I would say that often, and this is a Chiddush I had recently, I can't use the word Chilul Hashem about something. Because when you're aware of it,
that itself is a chilul.
Then that's what you're doing. If you pronounce this as a chilul Hashem, a certain
That's
act,
what the Maggid said. If you saw something,
then you're participating in it. It's very, very complicated.
If you see chilul
Should I
Shabbos,
speak to you or the guy on the right?
I'm saying this is
אני חושב שאמרתי מספיק for the time.
Thank you so much.
Wow, amazing.
Thank you. Now let's start learning.
Well, wait a second. The first one here is Mati because he wanted to say something what the Maggid was
You already said
saying.
enough.
Mati, what he's saying that the Maggid
Thank you.
said.
It doesn't have to be for every.
No, wait, he's throwing a word. We
No,
can't.
the Baal Shem,
Yeah.
We'll give an entire class.
תן לי לעבור באופן מסודר, אוקיי?
Okay.
תודה.
The Gemara says that Shofar keeps the Zikaron Kilifnim Dam. It's like standing like by Hashem.
Right.
And the Rambam also says that Shofar Remes Yesh B'Davar, and so it aligns with
Both places he says
Remes Yesh
What?
B'Davar.
He says what?
The Rambam says
Remes Yesh B'Davar, but Shofar and here.
רמז יש בדבר,
Yesh
כן.
B'Davar,
נכון.
So Remes probably means like Remes Betzvur, right? It's pointed. It's a pointer.
Exactly. It's clear from the Arabic also. Remez means
is a pointer.
pointing.
it lines up with the
What's the word in Arabic?
with the
They translate.
Same as mine. It's pointing to.
The idea was that a remez is not a clue. A remez is let me get my thoughts. I forgot the distinction. the Fastel to say, I know I didn't want to get into it. That was what I had in mind on the Remez. But wait a second, let me see. It's a article by Frege, a classic one on sense and reference. Yes, Remez is used as reference by the Rambam. That is, Remez yesh b'davar. It means it points us in a direction. It refers us to think in a certain way.
Put it into context of Megillah and Shofar.
In the mikveh, Remez yesh b'davar, what he's taking is he's saying there's this signifies something important about how we should understand what it is that we're doing. In many ways, it's taking kavanah in the sense of like someone suggested here of aiming. What does it mean to aim something? And it's and it also turns over the notion, for example, of instead of asking him shgurat filato bifi, using the girsa in Ktav Yad Kaufman in shagrat filato bifi. In shagrat filato bifi, that means if you feel that it's flowing through you, it's like being a conduit. Yeah, are you a conduit? Are you a conduit? That's
meaning that the tefillah exists and it's just you that...
Exactly. Can you be a conduit? Or can your tefillah be what you're using to be a conduit?
Tefillah is its own entity. You have to be the...
It's a kli. It's a kli. But it also depends, and I think this is a crucial issue. What I think that Hasidut of the Besht has, of the Talmidim of the Besht are well aware of something that I think that earlier Rishonim aren't troubled with, and that's the question of your ego. You can't aim if you have too much notion of yourself as an actor.
Ego.
Yes. That's a bitul hayesh. The bitul hayesh is that. It's not that your body disappears. It's a question of individuation. What individuates you? And there are many different madregas. You can do it in many different ways.
Can you say that the David HaMelech is ani tefillah is less than megamra, he's like nothing? He's only tefillah, it's going through him.
Va'ani tefillati.
Yeah.
You know,
that's
that's beautiful. I didn't know that. You know, I've always been troubled by this person. מה הוא רוצה להגיד ואני תפילתי? אז לך השם את רצון. יפה. I'm sorry, you want to see, I'm going on and on, but who else?
There's something in the beginning that to be honest not charged up.
What?
I'm trying to understand. Like, you mentioned like there's 2 or 3 different concepts of kavanah. Like there's the minimum reading, and I think we got to start from the point of like what is being completely void of kavanah. In other words, as soon as you do have an action of any kind, you're already somewhat connected to a level of kavanah. What is being void?
I would put it even this way. As soon as you're in language, you're in kavanah. And that starts from childhood. Right. And therefore, I think that this is one of the reasons that I said before that I didn't want to speak about it. I want to speak about that.
I want to point out my question.
So the point isn't that it's a void of kavanah. The question is different. The question is whatever you guys want.
Continue.
Although I have to be a Sunday tomorrow also. I don't know if I'm up to it, but learn I'm always happy.
So I want to bring up my question a little more. The Mishnah says a roya that's behind the Beis HaKnesset, right? He's obviously conscious of the idea that shofar is blown, otherwise he's not even aware of it, so what are we telling him?
He knows what a shofar is, but he doesn't know The Mishnah is saying that if your job didn't permit you to be in shul to participate, but you
Correct.
passed and you heard, that's it.
Yeah, but
That's the mitzvah.
but you have to be a kavan libo. So that is my question. What is void of kavana?
I don't think there is.
The roya, as soon as he comes, so
what's
there
the
is no
shliim?
example of that.
what's
meaning.
Nachon, but it's a minimal notion.
Yeah, but it seems like the roya comes and asks, was a yotze shofar, and what do we tell him? So there must be a possibility of where he's actually not here.
Where's Kavuna?
So
What's the state of neutral Kavuna?
I think they're giving. I think there's. I would say, look, the Tosefta. It could be that the Tosefta was bothered by that because the Tosefta starts discussing mi yatzav and mi lo yatzav.
Right.
After Pisha says Shama.
So if you're already Shama, in other words, then you would say he's already there. In other words, he's conscious of the fact that he heard shofar.
Maybe not.
Right.
No.
But maybe not.
No.
Maybe not.
No, but no.
Zeh Shama v'zeh Shama. They're both conscious of it. So what's missing is here an intent, so to speak, more than just being conscious of the fact that shofar is blowing.
You're sitting here. Are you paying attention? Do you know that the cars are beeping outside?
Exactly.
I didn't hear it.
Bingo.
But you
You heard it.
You weren't
If I heard it, then you heard
You
it.
didn't pay attention to it. You heard it, you didn't pay attention.
So I'm trying to get to the first level of what is the void of kavana and where does that start?
I don't think there is a void of kavana. I think it's a question
Because we do have a whole sugya of mitzvah tzrichas kavana or not tzrichas
yes,
kavana. So
yes.
we see that
I
there's
would
a
say-
level of it.
I would say that the Bavli is completely misreading the Mishnah. I think when it's asking mitzvah sichot kavana, it goes to, this is what the background is for Rashi saying that kavana is about l'shem mitzvah.
Okay.
And I think that doesn't explain the Mishnah to us. I think that the it's not good enough an explanation. I think the Bavli is
But the Rambam
pushing
also
it that
deals
much
with
as-
it in halacha and that content, no?
No, he doesn't ask it that way.
He doesn't ask
He
it, but
doesn't
there is
ask it
a...
that way. He doesn't ask it that way. It's simply not sufficiently clear. Yeah, I think the sugya of the Bavli needs here a better understanding. I think your question is absolutely right, but I wouldn't. I'm not convinced that the Bavli's question helps us understand the different examples in the Mishnah.
Okay.
That's what I think. I would say on the contrary, or maybe you might say it does, because what it's trying to do, what the Bavli is saying is that this isn't bichlal an issue of kavanah latzet, ela understanding what you're doing. What is the minimal understanding for saying that someone fulfilled their norm? Now, why is this important? It's important if you want to have an inclusive community. I'll say even more than that. I think one of the things that the Rambam teaches us, I would say this is his position in Moreh Nevuchim, is that, okay, there's a big question in understanding how proper names work. What is a proper name? As, for example, let's say, Menachem נתן שיעור היום. Okay, Menachem נתן שיעור היום. Now, there's the actions I did. Now, what does my name do? What does it mean when you use it for, what is the linguistic action that we use when we use a proper name?
No.
There are many people that think that a proper name works in the sense that it points. It points. It doesn't need meaning. A name doesn't need meaning.
True, it's an identifier.
You just have to know how to use it. How do we know this? Because you can say, what can change, what can take the place of a name? What we call a definite description. For example, you would say, I could say that David Ben Gurion Khatam al Megillat Ha'atzmaut And you can say Rosh HaMemshala Rishon B'Yisrael, Chatam al Megillat Ha'atzmaut. Here, that term is used like as if it were a name. Now, why is this important? Because a proper use of a name in a language doesn't need understanding. Names don't need meaning. They function. And therefore, if I understand the Rambam correctly, what the Jewish community is a community that in which all its religious actions are performed lifnei Hashem. That's the minimum. What does it mean? That's Shiviti Hashem Lenigdi Kemi. That is being a Jew. That for the Rambam is what makes the Jews a Kehilat Kodesh, a Kehilat Avodah. To be a Christian would have a completely different thing. They would normally go to their Mashiach. Normally. Interesting what goes on in Arabic. Because in Arabic you use the word Allah. And if you look at the way the term Allah is used by Rishonim who spoke Arabic, they use it in two senses. They use it sometimes as in its specific meaning of Elohim, its generative meaning as Elohim, but sometimes they use it as Nidaf L'Shem Hashem. And this is true also of Arabs. Arabs use the word Allah in both these ways. Now, why is this important? This is important because if you go along with the Rambam on this, then the Jewish community is a community that's bound by a constant intentionality towards the Kodesh Baruch Hu. Now, that's built into it. Why? Because they share a language. That's why I answered you from the place of the language, and that's why I'm not running to the mind, although I think that's a further development. If someone wants to ask, how does standing before Hashem expand my soul? This is a serious question. And we have tools for this here. So I don't think that there's such a thing as void of kavanah. You can't, because that's what language does. Language orients us constantly in the world. However, what we do is something else. Is we ask, how do we fulfill a norm? What level of self-consciousness, attention, individuation do we need to fulfill a norm? And these have many different things. Think about it negatively, right? Think about, for example, in criminal law. You could say, A killed B. What do I care if it's first-degree murder, second-degree murder? He killed him, the Malnu. No, that's exactly the entire distinction is what he had in mind what he was doing. So, and this is true about law in general. It works in both directions. So I don't think there's anything as void of language. I think that at the very, I think that if we go to the first few weeks of a baby's life, I think that the best article I've read about that in psychoanalysis is Winnicott's article on playing in reality. That's an amazing article about how already in the first weeks you really create the world that's full of meaning for you, or full of significance for you, although you may not know its meanings. And our intentionality is a fundamental thing in it, but I think what the Mishnah is about building on this.
That's why the Mishnah brings these examples.
Right.
But there's no language involved.
No, language doesn't only mean speaking. We can't identify anything if we don't have a language.
Okay, two things. First off, that doesn't really jibe well with the concept of just the way we said before about just hearing something, two people stand in the same place, and one pays attention to it and the other one doesn't. But we know that they both have the same function of hearing.
But they may not be aware of it.
Okay, does that answer his question about neutral kavanah?
No, it's not about neutral kavana.
No
It was
kavana.
about no kavana.
No, fine, but not negative.
You can't
That's what I
be a
meant.
human
I
being
meant
that doesn't have.
not
You know what?
negative.
Even animal. You can't be an animal without kavana.
So I wanna touch on a.
I have lots of
so
dogs
did
and cats
so did he
in my
have
life, and they
so
are.
did he have kavanah
You
in
like
his car
kavanah?
honking or not?
No, I would say that's a nonsensical question.
In regard to
Why?
shofar.
No, because there are questions of identification, but they're all in a normative context here. They're all asking, what does it mean? What does it mean to hear Megillah? What does it mean to hear the Kriyas Shema in the context of fulfilling a mitzvah? That's the issue here.
Yes.
And it's not about, but we use notions of
There's a
kavanah,
very
attention, and all
specific
these things
example.
are fundamental to who we are.
But there's a very specific example in the Mishnah.
Right.
That somebody standing in back of the Beit Midrash. Somebody is standing in the top floor conference room, and there's something happening somewhere. Now, two people standing next to each other, we know they're both hearing it.
They are hearing it, it's true they're
Both
hearing it
of them are hearing it. Now, if
Biologically, exactly.
biologically they're both hearing it.
But he's not
But yet
thinking
the
about
Mishnah
it.
is-
But that's not the issue of the Mishnah. When the Mishnah is asking the question, "היה קורא בתורה והגיע הזמן למקרא."
That's not I'm talking about the other one. The
Shofar.
The shofar.
Drone.
So the shofar is, they're important nafkaminas. Do we want, for example, do you want the ro'eh not to work on Rosh Hashanah? And to go to say, I'll put this aside, I have to make sure that in the morning I go hear shofar. And the Mishnah is saying no. The Mishnah is saying it's okay, we can see you as part of our normative community. That's the upshot of the Mishnah. Because what? Because if you were aware, oh, I heard shofar, and I think we all know this. If you're going on, let's say you're going on Rosh Hashanah early in the morning, but you haven't, the Minyanei Ashkamav already davened, and you're going, and I hear the shofar. First of all, I usually stop to hear 30 kolot, because I say, I don't know when I'm going to be, מתי אני אגיע, אם אגיע, לא אגיע, גמרנו, שמעתי.
Can't have the bracha now.
What? If I'm not making for myself.
What the key shofar is that? Hearing in the middle of the street shofar.
That's exactly his choice.
You're part of the community.
Exactly.
That's what I wanted.
That's all you need to do.
To get to that.
You're part of the community. This is what I think is
You
the
don't have to go to
background.
shul. You could walk by
It's
shul.
not. It's not.
I understand. I just have a question. I don't know if we're gonna have time to really explore this, but I get a sense from the way you're presenting the Rambam that you're coming fundamentally from a Rambam that's not so much conventionally the way people see the Rambam. In other words, it's more of a spiritual reading of the Rambam.
More of what?
A spiritual reading of the Rambam versus the philosophical Rambam. That's sort of the sense I'm getting.
that I'm reading him as what you would call a more spiritual.
A more spiritual reading within the Rambam, which I'm okay with that. I'm just trying to see if I'm correct with understanding.
First of all, I think you're right.
Okay.
I think you're right. I think it's very difficult to argue with these kind of things, with this kind of, with this halacha.
You're right.
Yeah.
No,
With this
I'm
halacha.
just getting, I'm not talking about just this halacha. I see your whole setup in the way you're presenting the Rambam's understanding of tefillah.
Of course I have a position on this.
Otherwise, why would he be here?
If I understood
Of course,
okay, because
Because I would say even more than that. And this has to do with what I said before about romanticism. Romanticism, I think we have to reject on both its sides. First of all, on its very, very, very specific understanding of rationalism is, and secondly, about feeling. What is feeling? I think they're wrong on both accounts. And I think certainly, if you look at a medieval thinker like the Rambam doesn't even have a word for language. These are modern words. If you look at,
speak in more about the sense of emotions, even when they're attached in
Ipaluyot.
Ipaluyot, yeah.
Yes, no, of course he speaks about Ipaluyot, but Ipaluyot are not feelings.
The emotions, how else?
Well, emotions are different.
Okay.
Emotions are structured differently than feelings. I also think there's no such thing as spontaneity because we are in language.
What do you mean by that, in language?
What does it mean? That means that from day one, the world we know is mapped out to us, and mapped out to us by a language that we're not the first speakers of it. But
Why language? Why
By language,
why using the word
expression.
Language is the word we use for what in anthropology would call the semiotic web we live in. What is it? A world, we live in a signified world. A world that's full of meaning. And these meanings are not the ones that we created. We're born into them. Now we play around with them. What we love about people like the Rambam, the Besh, great peoples, what do? They are at the forefront of pushing. They're pushing the meaning. They're on the forefront, and that changes our notion of the world.
Right, so you could change it.
Of course.
So you're born with a certain map, but you're extending and you're deepening the map.
Yeah, but you can go outside of
Language
the
is
framework of
structure.
language.
So you have
You're giving it more meaning. So what?
It doesn't have to be
That's
That's not the issue. The issue is how we go about moving in a world that's full of significance for us.
Is that
And that's
contradiction
what
to
I'm just trying to
Bechira?
understand.
Does that contradict Bechira? Is that
Does that?
contradict Bechira to a certain
That's why I'm
degree?
trying to.
Oh no, it restricts it.
It restricts Bechira.
It has.
I'm just trying to.
There's no meaningful bechira if you don't have
You don't have
choices.
meaning. Yeah.
No, here.
I'm trying to understand.